The Christian in Complete Armour by William Gurnall. Ephesians, chapter 6, verse 17b. Chapter 2. What is here meant by the Word of God? I begin with the weapon itself, the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God. I shall first hold forth the sword naked, and then put it again into the sheath, to handle it under the metaphor of a sword. There is a twofold Word of God. First, a substantial or subsisting Word, and that is the Son of God, John 1:1. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. Revelations 19:13. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God. This is spoken of a person, and he no other than Christ, the Son of God. But he is not the Word of God in the text. The Spirit is rather Christ's sword than Christ the sword of the Spirit. See verse 15 of the aforementioned chapter. Out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations. Secondly, there is a declarative word of God, and this is manifold, according to the divers ways and manners, whereby the Lord hath been pleased to declare his mind to the sons of men. At first, while the earth was thinly sown with people, and the age of man so voluminous as it contained many centuries of years, that God delivered his mind by dreams and visions with such like immediate revelations upon faithful witnesses, who might instruct others of their generation therein, and transmit the knowledge of the same to their after ages. They living so long that three holy men were able from the death of Adam to preserve the purity of religion by certain traditions, till within a few years of the Israelites going down to Egypt. For as the reverent and learned Pin calculates the chronology, Methuselah lived about 200 years with Adam, and from him might receive the will of God revealed to him. Shem lived almost 100 years with Methuselah, and Shem was alive to the 50th year of Isaac's age, who died by a few years before Israel's going into Egypt. Thus long did God forbear to commit his will in writing, because it passing through so few, and those hardy hands, it might safely be preserved. But when the age of man's life was so contracted, that from 8 and 900 years, and then ordinary duration of it, it shrunk into but so many tens as it was in Moses' time. Psalms 90. And when the people of God grew from a few persons to a multitude in Egypt, and those corrupted with idolatry, God, intending at their deliverance from thence to form them into a commonwealth, thought it fit, for the preventing of corruption in his worship and degeneracy in their lives, that they should have a written law to be as a public standard to direct them in both. And accordingly he wrote the 10 Commandments with his own finger on tablets of stone, and commanded Moses to write the other words he heard from him on the mount. Exodus chapter 34, verse 27. Yet so that he still continued to signify his will by extraordinary revelations to his church, and also to enlarge his first edition of his written word according to the necessity of the times, reserving the canon of sacred right to be finished by Christ, the great doctor of the church, who completed the same, and by the apostles his public notaries consigned it to the use of his church to the end of the world. Yea, a curse from Christ's mouth cleaves to him that shall add to or take from the same. Revelations 22, verse 18 and 19. So that now all those ways whereby God directly made known his mind to his people are resolved into one of the Scriptures, which we are to receive at the undoubted Word of God, containing in it a perfect rule of faith and life, and to expect no other revelation of his mind to us, which is the meaning of Hebrews 1:1. God, who at sundry times and in divers manners spake in times past by the fathers of the prophets, hath in these last days spoken to us by his Son. Therefore called the last days, because that we are to look for no other revelation of God's will. And therefore forever let us abhor those blasphemy of Abias, Wicklin, Joachim, and others who have fallen into the same frenzy with them, who dream of the threefold doctrine flowing from the three persons of the sacred Trinity, the law from the Father, the gospel from the Son, and we have in the New Testament and a third from the Spirit, which they call Evangelium Aeternum, whereas the Spirit of God himself, by whom the Scriptures were indicted, calls the doctrine in it the everlasting gospel. Revelations chapter 14, verse 6. Thus, much to show what is here meant by the Word of God. From thence the doctrine follows. End of chapter 2 of Ephesians 6, verse 17b.